This video will discuss finding the square roots of fractions, and particularly if it's better to find the square root and then simplify your fraction, or to simplify your fraction and then take the square root. For example, if we were asked to find the square root of 64/512ths, this fraction could be simplified. So would it be better to simplify it and then square root it, or to take the square root and then simplify? Let's try it both ways and compare our answers. First, let's simplify the inside of our fraction and then take the square root. This inside fraction could be written as 64 times 1 over 64 times 8, and since 64 is a factor of both the numerator and the denominator, they can cancel each other out, leaving us with the answer of the square root of 1/8. If we want to simplify this further by applying the square root, we can apply the square root to both the numerator and the denominator to get the square root of 1 over the square root of 8, which then equals 1 over the square root of 2 times the square root of 4, which can be written as 1 over 2 square root of 2. The square root of 4 becomes the 2, and the square root of 2 stays the square root of 2. And finally, if we want to get rid of this square root in the denominator, we can multiply both the numerator and the denominator by the square root of 2. And when we do this, our final answer is the square root of 2 over 4. This 4 comes from 2 times square root of 2 times square root of 2. This square root of 2 times this square root of 2 equals 2, and so 2 times 2 equals 4. So that was our answer when we first simplified our fraction and then took the square root. But what would happen if we took the square root of both the numerator and the denominator and then simplified? Our original expression, 64/512ths, could be rewritten as the square root of 64 over the square root of 512, and then our numerator, square root of 64, can be simplified to 8, and the square root of 512 can be rewritten as square root of 8 times the square root of 64. If we rewrite this denominator as 8 square root of 8, this 8 coming from square root of 64 and this square root of 8 being the same square root of 8 here, then we can cancel out the 8's in our numerator and denominator, and we're left with 1 over the square root of 8. 1 over the square root of 8 equals 1 over the square root of 2 times the square root of 4. And this step here is actually identical to this step in our previous example, so we know that if we continue simplifying it, it would simplify the same way, and we would end up with, once again, square root of 2 over 4. So we found that either way we do this, whether we first simplify our fraction and then apply the square roots, or if we apply the square roots right away and then simplify our fraction, we end up with the same answer. And this is true in any case. If you want to take the square root of a fraction, you can either simplify the fraction and then apply the square roots, or you can apply the square roots right away and then simplify your fraction. Either way, you'll get the same answer as long as each of your steps is mathematically correct.